Good morning. Last week, a member of this family of faith and a friend of mine, Frank Schwartzot, passed away. Frank was only 70 years old. I'd first met Frank about 20 years ago. I met him through his wife, Darlene. It turned out that Darlene and Frank were watching St. Luke's worship service on TV every Sunday. She couldn't get out. She had a lung disease. She couldn't get out among other people, and she would have been too weak anyway. Frank was her primary caregiver. So they watched every Sunday, and one day she called and asked could she join the church even though she couldn't come in person. And we said absolutely. And then she added, but I want to do something for my church. I don't want to just give money and watch. I want to do something. And so we came up with the idea you could be a part of our prayer team ministry. You receive every week a list of people who've turned in prayer requests, and you can be praying for them every day. She was thrilled with the idea, and that's what she did. She would do that for an extended period of time until finally she had to go to the hospital, and it came to the end. And on the last day before she went unconscious and passed away, she had her prayer team list, and she was still praying for the members of this family of faith. I conducted her funeral, and I walked with Frank through that valley of the shadow of death and a time of grief. Now he was free no longer to be home on Sunday mornings, and he jumped into church with both feet. It was something kind of new for Frank. But he started coming. He was a part of Wednesday Night Alive, and he came to Bible studies. He truly just jumped in and made friends. He was in church every Sunday. And it was a wonderful thing. He would tell me years later how much he had grown in his faith and how much it had changed his life. This 4 or 5 years later, that he showed up with a lady, and he introduced me to Glenna. He had found a wonderful lady. He was falling in love, and I watched it change his life again with a new sense of joy and a new sense of meaning. They were really wonderful for one another. And again, I was asked and given the privilege of doing their wedding. And what an exciting and beautiful wedding that it truly was. But one of the things that I saw happen to Frank was that Glenna had 2 children, and they were teenagers. And so suddenly, for the first time in his life, Frank was a father, and of teenagers. He and I would go to lunch, and we'd talk about the challenges of being a parent of teenagers. And yet I could also see what it was doing to really soften that heart of his in a wonderful way. And then Glenna's oldest child, a son, well, he got married. And he and his wife, well, they were big fans of OSU. And Frank worked for 6 months to get Pistol Pete to show up at their wedding. They were stunned. It was one of the ways that he was able to show his love for his new children. And it was such a gift, and they were so stunned, and he was so proud to be able to pull it off. And then her son Jason, well, they had 2 children, a boy and a girl, and then a boy. And suddenly Frank found himself as a grandfather, holding babies. He had never held a baby in his life. And again, to watch it, how it softened his heart in a continued way. It was just so fun to see the incredible love that he had for his grandchildren. Fixing their toys or picking them up from school, taking them out to eat, to Sonic, or especially when they said, we want to go eat Mexican food. Frank hated Mexican food. When he and I went out to lunch, we never went for Mexican food. But when his grandkids said we want to eat Mexican food, he always took them, never complained, and he would order fried shrimp. Who orders fried shrimp at a Mexican food restaurant? But that's what he would do and never complain. Because he really had found what does it mean to love someone else and to sacrifice for them. Frank was only 70 years old. Way too soon for him to go. They suddenly discovered that he had cancer, and it was only a couple of weeks after the diagnosis, Frank was gone. But I will always remember Frank. Remember how he loved and the love that he brought in my life and joy. And to live a life where people remember you for your compassion and your kindness and your love, and then to know that you have entered into the kingdom of heaven, what more can be asked out of a person's life? I know Frank has found new life in the kingdom of heaven, but he also lives on in my heart, in Marcia's heart, because we will remember he and Glenna and their family, but will remember Frank in the way that he loved. What more could any one of us ask for? Maybe today, we all need to remember this is the day to reach out and sacrifice and show your love for someone that you care for. I hope you go out and make it a great day.